here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? Fight against that? No! We will run! And we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds, many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
You ready? Let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, yo. This is 10% luck.
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this evening. Oh, CVS, what are they doing? Been seeing this all over Twitter, all over Facebook, social media, all over the news. So I figured, hey, might as well cover it. Dealing with CVS, and apparently they are going to stop selling tobacco products, which I don't know why you would care to go to CVS for your tobacco products, but they're set to stop selling it. And they're expecting a $2 billion, that's how much revenue they usually get, annual revenue from tobacco sales, $2 billion. So loss of $2 billion. I have one article here out of RT.com. America's second largest drugstore chain announced on Wednesday that it will stop selling tobacco products in all of its stores nationwide this year. The decision by CVS Caremark will remove cigarettes, cigars, and chewing tobacco from the company's 7,600 stores by October 1st as it continues to expand its healthcare operations. CVS stated it will become the first national pharmacy chain to phase out tobacco products. Ending the sale of cigarettes and tobacco products at CVS Pharmacy is the right thing for us to do for our customers and our company to help people on their path to better health, said CVS President and CEO Larry J. Merlo in a press release. Put simply, the sale of tobacco products is inconsistent with our purpose. According to USA Today, company executives see CVS becoming more of an alternative to the doctor's office. In the future, more than 800 medical clinics have already been opened in stores nationwide, and the move to do away with tobacco sales was made not just to expand its business with doctors and other medical professionals, but also to eliminate the contradiction of being a healthcare operation that sells cigarettes. One of the first questions medical groups ask us is, well, if you're going to be part of the healthcare system, how can you continue to sell tobacco products? CVS Chief Medical Officer Dr. Troyan Bremen told the Associated Press there's really no good answer to that at all. I think that the simple fact that they're becoming healthcare providers, that maybe should be more of a question than why would them as a business that sells a lot more than healthcare products. You think about it, they sell much more than healthcare products, so why would they not take the $2 billion worth of revenue? Would you want to be going to CVS instead of a doctor's office? We got a room back here. Let our doctor that works overtime here for extra money because the healthcare system is crap now, and he has to pick up the overtime to pay for his college education. So now he's tired and wore out and working at CVS for overtime. That's what I see happening. Why would you want to go to CVS for cigarettes? About the same reason you'd want to go to CVS for a doctor's visit. You wouldn't. It might be one of those things you just happen to be in the area and you need that pack of cigarettes or you need that doctor. But looks like no longer for CVS. And I had something else here real quick. It looks like it's not wanting to play to my board now. Let's make sure my audio settings are right. Okay. I think that was a problem right there. Let's try this again. I have one here, from We Are Change. Terry Crews gets peed off at Luke Rudkowski. And I want to play this, and I'll talk about the reason I really wanted to play this after. Let me skip this here. Okay, here we go.
Hey Terry, how you doing?
What's up,
Luke Rudkowski of We Are Change. How are you enjoying Super Bowl?
I'm enjoying it, man. I always enjoy it. To me, I get to see old players. I get to see good friends. It's kind of like a reunion of sorts with a lot of NFL guys, and you know, it's the biggest thing of the year. And also, coming back, this is the thing. I got a Super Bowl commercial. They're playing my TV show right after the game. And, you know, when you get cut from the NFL, they basically kick you out and say, you know, goodbye. We'll probably never see him again. Well, you see me again. And it feels good that they always see me again. And it's a really cool thing. And I tell all the players that your life really begins once your football career ends. It's just so much life left. And I want to be an example to these guys and let them know there's a lot left going on. Let's go.
Now, Terry, the State of the Union was this week. What do you think about President Barack Obama?
I love Barack. The thing about the State of the Union is that it preempted Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That was the only thing I didn't like because they weren't able to play a new episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But I can forgive the president for that.
So are you okay with him lying and spying on everyone illegally?
Well, I'm not into that. I don't know what you're talking about. I have
the NSA program, the illegal program that he denied but now exists because of Edward Snowden, where they're spying on every single person for monetary purposes.
That's great. But so you got proof that they're doing that?
Edward Snowden, a whistleblower, came out and said and proved and leaked the documents. Are you aware of the situation?
Don't know Edward Snowden. Heard of him.
Yeah.
But that's what you, the media, is saying. I don't know.
Okay.
President Obama doesn't talk to me. Apparently he talks to you. So apparently he's lying to you. And somebody lying. I don't get into that. I'm an actor.
Okay.
I just pretend. Thank you.
No problem. Sorry.
You got a prediction?
Is these questions like this?
These are more sports.
Yeah, I want real questions. Real questions. Hey, man, is this a party or what is this, man? What, a political party?
I mean, if you just support them, you know,
is this a political party?
To why? That's it.
No, man. You need to just get off the topic.
I got a question for you around the Super Bowl. What's your prediction for Sunday and the softball?
I was just saying, if you support him, you should know what you're supporting.
Now, you all heard that. Oh, what do you think about Obama? Oh, Obama, I think he's great. Oh, yeah, he's just awesome. Well, what about the State of the Union? Oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Great. But the moment, brings up the whole spying thing and, oh, you should be kicked off the property. What is this, a political rally? Oh, when it favored him, talking about Obama being great, it was fine. But the moment, I have to answer a real question about him? Oh, you brought something bad up about Obama. How dare you? How dare you question Obama? Typical kind of leftist, bandwagon, Hollywood rhetoric. and that really kind of shows the hypocrisy in that whole, leftist supporting of Obama and definitely coming out of Hollywood. Oh, he's great. Oh, you asked me a real question. How dare you? You should get off the property. Like, really? Don't you dare question Obama. It was just unbelievable. How dare you? And you really have to watch the video to watch his reaction, when he gets to say how, great he thinks Obama is, how, he got this big old smile on his face. Moment he was, questioning about something real. Oh no. Nope. Couldn't do it. I'll drop the link to that in the chat for everyone. And you guys can, watch that a little bit later and see the reaction. Actually see the reaction. He has that disgust. How dare you? Oh my. It's amazing how the left can really, be so hypocritical that they don't even realize it. Like, to the point, like, he's going, I just can't believe it. And like, were you not just saying how great Obama was? You didn't have a problem answering that. What do you think of Obama? Oh, he's great. What do you think about his illegal spying on Americans? How dare you? Don't you question our emperor? Basically. It's basically what it was. Okay. I was glad that this one came out. This one's coming out, Ben Swan. Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary wrong about capitalism. I really completely dislike this guy. This is your typical corporatist. And this is what gives capitalism a bad name, because he thinks he's a capitalist. He doesn't look at himself as a corporatist. Let me cue this up here. Here we go.
Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary says that reports that the 85 richest people in the world have more wealth than the 3.5 billion poorest people is fantastic I'm Ben Swan with your Truth in Media moment. Thanks for watching. You know, the statement by O'Leary was callous at best and at worst, sadistic. O'Leary makes the point that this is great news. Fantastic, he says. In fact, here is exactly what he said.
It's fantastic. And this is a great thing because it inspires everybody, gets the motivation to look up to the 1% and say, I want to become one of those people. I'm going to fight hard to get up to the top. This is fantastic news, and of course I applaud it. I celebrate capitalism.
Now, what O'Leary calls capitalism, though, has nothing to do with the statistic of the world's poorest. To claim that all the world's poor need to do is pull themselves up by their bootstraps is pretty naive when you consider the fact that they don't have boots. The 3.5 billion people on the planet who live in the poorest nations live in places such as Sierra Leone, Somalia, Ethiopia, Afghanistan, Cambodia, or Indonesia, and there's more. Now, these people live on $1.25 a day. The truth about abject poverty, whether it's in Ghana or the Appalachians, is that capitalism isn't even an option for these people. The resources of the poorest nations may be taken advantage of by rich multinational corporations. Poor nations' assets may be pledged as collateral for loans from the World Bank. You know, when corrupt local governments allow the natural resources in poor nations to be plundered, the citizens don't have an engine to build wealth. Lack of infrastructure, rampant corruption, little access to formalized education, all those factors keep a bright entrepreneurial person in the third world from ever achieving any wealth. To pretend that these people have the opportunity to become anything they desire and that it is only a lack of will that holds them back is simply ignorant. Be sure to check out all of our stories that affect your liberty online. You can find me at benswan.com. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel and check out all of our Truth in Media videos on our YouTube channel. Just look for Ben Swan. Remember,
I would agree completely. That Kevin O'Leary, if you've ever seen Shark Tank and the way he goes about his business, he's very, egotistical, and you can tell by the way he's talked about crushing people, and, he's definitely a corporatist, and, you know, he's a big GMO supporter, which, you know, if you want GMO for your diet, well, okay, but, definitely don't like, GMO being forced and using government to get away with, well, your crop got contaminated by our GMO, so we're suing you. What? No. What, you know, what's happened to our justice system that a company can sue you for contaminating your crop with their GMO crop? We have a fault system there. Bitcoin. Let me bring it up here. Bitcoin looking, high today of 939, currently around 908. You can still find it for 905.1. But it's kind of, falling right now. It looks like it hit a high mark early, then it dropped slowly throughout the day, then it hit another high peak at about 925 here not too long ago, and it's dropped back down to 905. There's a lot of worry going around Bitcoin, but there is some good news out there. I have seen quite a few reports. I'm trying to find them. I'm kind of lost a lot of what I had up because I had everything crash. My browser crashed and froze up. So I lost a lot of what I had. Let's see here if I can find some of the articles. But Bitcoin ATMs are now going in, I know, and there was about 3 or 4 more companies that are now accepting Bitcoin So when you look at it from that point of view, there is a good possibility that you'll see Bitcoin level back out. I think reasonable outlook would be 950. What you have to be cautious about is if you see any major news about regulation or hype like that. But right now we've seen it kind of get pretty quiet on that front. I think what's happened, why it's quiet on that front, is they've tried to bring Bitcoin down multiple times and it's failed. No one ever expected to hit the 900 mark ever, and it's been above the 900 mark for quite a long time. And now, like I said, every time you have companies come on to Bitcoin, you're going to have more people willing to accept it. And you know, the one thing about Bitcoin that has kind of held it back and helped it get its jump start, but it kind of also kind of limited its growth, was, you can buy, drugs with it on Silk Road. Well, that helped it jump off because, of course, the black market wanted to use it. But the thing about what's going on now with Bitcoin is, well, it's not for illegal uses. It's bigger, companies. You got Overstock. You got hotels. You have universities. You have so many companies, fast food chains. So many companies starting to take Bitcoin that now it's not looked at, well, it's just that black market currency. Don't use that stuff. It's black market. Well, now it doesn't hold that sentiment. And, I think that's a plus for Bitcoin. So I think realistic, we could see 950 with a lot of the new news, ATMs and more companies accepting Bitcoin. And apparently the Bitcoin ATMs are out now. So I don't have the articles right in front of me, so I can't really give you much more on that. I wish I would have bookmarked them, but that would be my bad. Tried to do too much and crashed everything. My luck. Okay, if I can find. Stefan Molyneux, he put out a pretty decent, video. I'm gonna play the audio from that. The truth about the NFL Super Bowl. Stefan Molyneux.
From Freedom Main Radio. I hope you're doing well. So, apparently 108 million Americans watched the Super Bowl last year. I'm sure it'll be even more this year, 2014. And question is, I guess, why is it such a huge sport? It's an entertaining sport, and big men do drive at each other at high velocities, but why is it so big? Almost $10 billion a year in gross revenues. Well, like all things that are enormous, a good place to look at is juicing or steroids, or as it's known in the sports business, taxpayer subsidies. One of the reasons why things get so big. So there are a few reasons why the NFL, despite some significantly negative aspects, such as serial life-threatening concussions to a significant number, thousands of players are now suing the NFL for not informing them of the medical dangers of concussions and personality changes and suicidal ideation. There is, of course, abuse of painkillers, abuse of performance-enhancing drugs, generally praising the larger the person, the better, until, yea, verily, they eclipse the very sun itself. So there are a number of negatives about it, but it's doing very well. And how is it able to be so immune from negative public perception? Well, much like the teachers' union, it is because it is both subsidized and heavily protected by the state. So approximately 70% of the cost of NFL stadiums are provided by the taxpayers, not the NFL owners. Generally, it's not because the NFL owners cannot afford the price of these stadiums. The net worth of these people runs into the hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. They are essentially a feudal aristocracy who have been granted a muscle-bound license to print money by the state. When the ongoing costs are included, 12 of the league's 32 teams turn a profit on stadium subsidies alone. In other words, the taxpayers are forced to pay for the stadiums, the cities maintain the stadiums, and they're profitable simply because of those subsidies alone. And of course, many stadiums are given a free pass on property taxes, which means, of course, that property taxes have to rise for everybody else. So, for example, in Minnesota, the Vikings wanted a new stadium. The Minnesota legislature, although it was facing a $1.1 billion budget deficit, gave $506 million from taxpayers as a gift to the team, covering about half the cost of the new facility. Perhaps they hoped to meet a cheerleader. I'm not sure, but that is pretty wretched. Now, the Vikings' principal owner, Zygmunt Wilf, I guess a Scotsman, had a 2011 net worth estimated at only $322 million. So with the new stadium deal, the Vikings' value rose about $200 million, which, of course, further enriched Wilf and his family. So that's nice. The NFL, as you may or may not know, the NFL headquarters are themselves tax exempt, and they've used this tax exempt status as a charity to shield about $35 million a year from the tax man, again, raising the price of taxes for everyone else. Originally, it was supposed to be sort of boards of business and so on, boards of trade that were supposed to be exempt, but in the 60s, some enterprising lobbyist wrote in that the NFL itself was tax exempt. The individual teams do pay taxes, but the NFL does not. So where's all this money coming from, other than you at the IRS point of a gun? Well, in 2013, CBS, ESPN, Fox, and NBC paid the NFL about $3 billion, yes, with a B, for license rights to broadcast games. Satellite carrier DirecTV pays about another $1 billion. Beginning this year, the group will pay the NFL about $6 billion annually for broadcast rights. Beginning this year, ESPN alone will remit to the NFL a staggering $1.9 billion, about twice what NBC will pay to broadcast Monday Night Football. And for that sum, ESPN doesn't even receive a place in the Super Bowl rotation, which alternates annually between CBS, Fox, and NBC. Now, one of the reasons why you want to pay so much to get football is because football is watched in real time, right? TiVo has decimated the expectations of advertisers, because your TiVo, you fast forward past the commercials. But if you're watching football live, you'll generally sit through the commercials weighed down as you are by 4 gallons of beer and 9 pounds of popcorn. So CBS, which carried the 2013 Super Bowl, got about $250 million from in-game advertising at $3.7 million per 30 seconds, plus millions more from pre-game and post-game ads. So in 2014, ESPN will spend $1.9 billion for 17 NFL games, compared to $700 million for 90 Major League Baseball outings. So they pay $112 million per NFL game, $8 million per Major League Baseball contest. So how is this achieved? Well, the NFL profits by creating all these game images, by recording all of these games in publicly funded stadiums. They broadcast the images over public airwaves, and then they keep all the money they receive as a result clutched tight to their toady-like chests. And this socialization of cost and privatization of profit is fundamentally a fascistic model, and as I said before, it results in a feudalistic monopoly of certain families over these profit enterprises, all protected by the power of the state. So the television images made in the publicly funded, or largely publicly funded stadiums are privatized. All the gains are kept by the owners. This is a delicious business model that is a core feature of late model crapitalism. Crapitalism is when you use crony capitalism to manipulate the political process for profit rather than competing in the free market. So how did this come about? I mean, why don't the individual teams broadcast their own rights and compete among each other? And why is the price so artificially high? Well, because the NFL enjoys a legal monopoly. In other words, the antitrust acts, they enjoy specific immunities from antitrust acts designed to prevent monopolies within the marketplace. So in 1961, the Sports Broadcasting Act granted the leagues, there were two back then, legal permission to conduct television broadcast negotiations in a way that would otherwise have been a price collusion. You hear about the robber barons of the 19th century. Most of it's just left-wing propagandist, progressive nonsense. But where there is this kind of price collusion, it would normally be illegal. But this was granting specific immunity from those laws against price collusion. In 1966, there was a law which limited the antitrust exemptions of the 1961 law. And in 1966, the statute said, well, if the two pro football leagues of the era merged, which they would do in 1974 years later, the new entity could act as a monopoly with regards to television rights. So only they could sell the television rights. And this, of course, legal monopoly, lack of competition, and immunity from antitrust action. And you don't have to pay corporate taxes in the NFL because you're a charity. All of this means it's virtually impossible to compete with them. So, I mean, there are public handouts, some of which are used for investment in temporary ways, such as when there were handouts for GM and Chrysler. There are handouts which go to banks, which then to some degree get repaid. But the public handouts for modern professional football, they never end, and they're never repaid. And what does it do? Does it add economic value? Well, they argue when you put a stadium up that it generates economic value. Economists generally disagree. One economist has said just shave move the decimal point one to the left. If they say it's 500 million, maybe it's 50 million. And it turns out that people who spend money in stadiums don't magically have that money replicate in their pockets to spend elsewhere. It's just a zero-sum game. They don't spend it in a movie, they spend it at a stadium. So the stadium owners are happy, the movie house owners are unhappy. So it doesn't really add anything economically that economists have been able to find. But of course, governments like it and politicians like it because you don't want to be the politician who drives the team away by not bribing them to stay. Although no team has really relocated since 1998, they constantly, in veiled ways, threaten to, well, we're looking into our options with other cities and so on. And then they just play the cities off against each other for who is going to bribe them with most of the taxpayers' money, and then they stay. If you drive away the favorite team, you're going to get voted out of office. And if you keep them there, you have lots of jobs, stadium building jobs, and so on to hand out, which is kind of what you want to do as a politician. So, and of course you can fund it using bonds, 10, 20, 30-year bonds that when they have to be repaid, you're long out of office and probably dead. So, you end up with this complete nonsense. Like, so in Philadelphia and Seattle, taxpayers continue to pay for bonds for NFL stadiums that were demolished years ago. A New Jersey Sports Authority issued hundreds of millions of dollars in tax-free bonds for the old Giant Stadium, which opened in 1976. A lot more bond value than the stadium was actually worth. Though the facility has since been razed, R-A-Z-E-D, gone, New Jersey taxpayers still cover about $35 million in annual subsidies on Giant Stadium bonds, which were used, of course, as the endless cookie jar by a generation of corrupt Garden State politicians. Nice to know that's all changed. And the taxes that are levied, if any, on stadiums are the results of negotiated settlements. In other words, it's not like the general 1 or 1.5% that homeowners pay on their property. It ends up being something negotiated far less. So the Jets and the Giants combined are worth roughly $3 billion, and a $6.3 million annual payment in lieu of taxes on the stadiums is the equivalent of 0.2% of property taxes. But remember, these are poor multi-hundred millionaires, or billionaires. So I think we all feel pretty good scraping the bottom of our own cookie barrel to line their pockets. There's a futuristic Star Trek-style new field where the Dallas Cowboys perform. It has 105,000 seats, go-go dancers on every level, and a built-in nightclub, actually more than one. and it's been appraised at about $1 billion, and property taxes paid are about zero. Zero property taxes on $1 billion. But again, the residents can be happy that their own property taxes are going up to compensate for that. So the NFL benefits from these massive public subsidies, tax favors, tax exemptions, no corporate taxes, antitrust waivers. And so is this feudalism. The NFL teams, most of them are family owned and taxpayer subsidized, government protected. So there are whole family groups that live like pashas at the average person's expense. And this is the feudal lords and ladies of European history, of current Pakistan, collect all these public payments while contributing little to nothing productive towards society. And for example, so Veterans Day 2012, the NFL announced its owners would donate to veterans groups $300 for each point scored in designated games. And of course, CBS, ESPN, Fox, NBC broadcast, oh, they're so great. They're the most generous guys ever. Total donation came to $432,000. Annualized NFL stadium subsidies and tax favors total about $1 billion. So the NFL took $1 billion from you and that guy sitting behind you and the 3 children who are still a gleam in your eye. And then they praised themselves for giving $432,000 back, less than 0.1%. So why don't you hear about this stuff? Well, CBS, ESPN, Fox, and NBC, they all broadcast the NFL games. This is, they're privatized profit programming created in public funded facilities. Companies keep all the after-tax advertising revenue and cable carrier fees, though, of course, none of this could occur without massive forced public funding of these stadiums. And, a fundamental reason these networks rarely mention the subsidized nature of the NFL, and they praise the NFL's owners rather than run honor exposés of their obscene wealth. Any emphasis on fair compensation to the public for its investments in the NFL would inevitably call attention to the network's own bag of candy arrangements with them. And it is just tragic. It's tragic how much is taken away from the public and how many youths are lured into this kind of mess. 0.02% of high school football players will ever end up playing for the NFL. It raises massively the salaries of the players, of the 2,000 odd players in the league. Well, because the taxpayers are subsidizing so much of the business, they can end up being paid a whole lot more. They have a monopoly. They have these tax exemptions. They don't pay property taxes, at least not much. And so it is wretched. It has created a parasitical, rich bunch of welfare bums that are constantly threatening increasingly bankrupt cities to take away, literally take their balls and go home and extort the local population through the politicians who wish to remain popular. The people who like the game somewhat like the subsidies because they have to pay less. The game itself has become completely distorted because of the vast amount of money being pumped into the system that is not being earned, that is being produced through forced taxation and debt. The NFL has become somewhat similar to the stock market, in which you have way too much money being forced into a system that is designed for much less. These subsidies for sports go back many years. In the 1930s, under Roosevelt's massive government spending attempts to end a lengthy depression. I wonder, is that familiar? Yes, I think it might be. They built thousands of baseball diamonds and thousands of football fields and so on. And that all began sort of the process. It's all government subsidies. How do you turn a hobby into a multi-billion-dollar business? Well, you get the government to grant you subsidies and protect you from competition, and you force the public to pay for everything that's needed for your business, and then you privatize all the profits and don't even pay in taxes what the average citizen pays as a percentage of property value or income. And then you make sure that you're classified as a charity. NFL classifies itself as a charity, which according to IRS laws means you should not be profiting significantly from that, and it pays its senior executives millions and millions and millions of dollars and vigorously fought any revelation of its salaries, which has only recently come through. So it's It's monstrous. And these very high salaries in the NFL lure lots of young men into taking these horrible risks with their health. President Obama recently said that if he had a son, he'd think very carefully about whether he would let him play football in high school because it's so dangerous. I mean, the brain damage that can occur from these concussions, not to mention other kinds of damage to the body, is wretched. But everyone's looking at these huge salaries and saying, well, I'd like a slice of that pie, but those salaries only exist because the government literally has its boot on the neck of the taxpayer, forcibly extracting money from them and from the next generation to pay for over-steroided, overpaid monsters in the here and now to crash into each other like medieval battering rams of infinite stupidity and predation. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Hey, I love sports. Sports is great. Exercise is great. Sports at gunpoint are not so great. So, I mean, I guess enjoy the game if you want. You certainly paid for it.
Corporatism or capitalism? Sounds more like corporatism, government, socialist, fascism, propaganda tool. Whatever you want to call it, it's definitely crooked. What they have done with it is extremely disheartening for what we normally would think of, a sports event, something that, it was supposed to be a release from, basically the entrapments of reality. And now it's being used by those same entrapments to propagandize people, and it's really left them brain dead, I think. A lot of these people that I've ran into, and they can't talk anything other than sports. They have no recollection of anything going on in reality other than sports. And that's sad. And we wonder why we are where we are. It should be pretty evident. I don't know about you, but when society stops looking at what's going on, it's evident that we're going to collapse as a society. I really think it is. We do have open phones, 718-717-8296. Feel free to call in. When we look at a lot of these, sports events anymore, they're just money pits for tax dollars. And then on top of all your tax dollars being spent to build a stadium and all this, you have to pay extravagant amounts of money to attend. And it's really sad to just watch this money being wasted on stuff to keep the populace dumbed down. And you've seen, that little response there on We Are Change. I have one here from benswan.com. Democrat representative giving Obama executive orders to sign is our number one agenda. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat of Texas, said that she will give President Obama a number of executive orders he can sign through the new Congressional Full Employment Caucus. She said signing executive orders should be our number one agenda. The Full Employment Caucus was created by Democrats in response to the ongoing jobs crisis in America. On January 29th, the Texas representative spoke to fellow Democrats and announced the launching of the Full Employment Caucus, she said. We will be answering the call of all of America because people need work, and we're not doing right by them by creating work. I believe this caucus will put us on the right path and will give President Obama a number of executive orders that he can sign with pride and strength. In fact, I think that should be our number one agenda. Let's write up these executive orders, draft them, of course, and ask the president to stand with us on full employment. This is total socialism, what they're trying to push here. Mandatory employment, basically. President Obama has made it very clear that he's prepared to act alone through executive orders. He said 2014 will be a year of action. Let me play this little thing from Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat from Texas. There's some pockets down in Texas that they're trying to grow the Democratic community. They're trying to get the Democrats to move down there. And it's always been known more of a conservative state, even with the Hispanic population, more conservative. It's definitely they're trying to turn Texas. And being someone that was born in Texas, from Texas, it's sad to watch Texas fall. Let's see if this will play here. Sometimes the videos on Ben Swan don't like to load. Okay. Here it goes.
Employment. And so we have a dream that is attainable, Mr. Conyers, and as well, we will be answering the call of all of America because people need work and we're not doing right by them by creating work. And I believe this caucus will put us on the right path that he can sign with pride and strength. In fact, I think that should be our number one agenda. Let's write up these executive orders, draft them, of course, and ask the president to stand with us on full employment. Thank you all for organizing this caucus.
Straight from her mouth. She wants to draft executive orders. So now we have representatives drafting executive orders for the president to sign. Not only does he want to act without Congress, he doesn't have to write the executive orders. We'll just, allow this caucus to do it. No, that's not what Obama's saying, but, he looked pretty, happy standing here holding her hand, So, I think they might be cozy enough that this might be a reality that we might be looking at. And, I think most people have heard about Justice Scalia on World War II internment camps. Kidding yourself if you think the same will not happen again. This one's coming out of Ben Swan too. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia warned that modern-day internment scenarios similar to those of Japanese internment camps in the U.S. during World War II could potentially happen again given the right political climate. While at the University of Hawaii Law School on Monday, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia said it 5 times fast. In response to a question about the court's 1944 decision in Korematsu versus United States, which upheld convictions for violating an order to report to an internment camp for Gordon Hirabashi and Fred Korematsu, said it was wrong, but I would not be surprised to see it happen again in a time of war. It's no justification, but it is a reality. That's definitely about the truth right there. Can't get really any truer than that. Says here, Justice Scalia went on to say, well, of course, Korematsu was wrong, and I think we have repudiated in a later case, but you are kidding yourself if you think the same will not happen again. He went on to quote a Latin expression meaning okay. No problem there. Where was I here? Latin expression meaning in times of war, laws fall silent. And isn't that about the truth? These statements by Justice Scalia lend serious legitimacy to the fears that have been expressed by organizations such as People Against the NDAA, PANDA, their opposition to sections 1021 and 1022 of the National Defense Authorization Act, which authorize the indefinite detention of American citizens on U.S. soil without due process of law, now seems extremely precedent after Scalia's recent remarks. These statements by Scalia hopefully assist in awakening the masses to the potential for abuse that resides within the NDAA. The candid remarks by Justice Scalia are a vivid reminder of fragile nature of the fleeting freedoms we often hold as inalienable rights. A seeming warning from a Supreme Court justice that the law alone isn't protection enough and that the citizenry needs to remain ever vigilant. BenSwan.com. And, people go, oh, FEMA camps, that's a conspiracy theory. They'll never detain American citizens without due process. It'll only be the bad people. That wouldn't be used for political descendants. Opposition. Even though we've seen IRS targeting of Tea Party, conservatives being targeted, even, liberals that aren't towing the socialist agenda line, more of just the Green Party ones, ones that still believe in liberty just are trying to fight the ones where people's properties and their health is being affected by other people. Legitimate, concerns. Not all environmentalists are fighting legitimate causes. I have to say there is a lot of stuff that is way overblown by environmentalists by being fed misinformation for political reasons. And it happens. It happens to the best of us. And some of them are helping that along. They champion that because, well, they think it'll give them some type of power. They need to be strong. Let me bring this up here. Some good news coming out of Florida. Florida reps moved to preserve Second Amendment. This one coming out of Next News Network. Some great news for Florida. I think they need it. I don't think their gun laws are laxed in the first place, so maybe this is good news.
Could Florida end nearly all federal gun laws in the Sunshine State? If a new bill introduced into the State House passes there, it may just come to be. State Representative Dane Eagle has introduced House Bill 733 into the Florida State House. This bill is commonly known as the Second Amendment Preservation Act. The legislation being considered in Tallahassee would forbid any state agencies from participating in the enforcement of any federal laws related to firearms. This prohibition would cover both present and future laws passed in Washington, D.C., and may provide a path for other states to follow suit, and indeed they are. Preventing the enforcement of federal laws on a state level is nothing new, and the founding father, James Madison, he is known as the father of the Constitution. He supported such actions known as nullification. He created the first blueprint of how such actions could take effect. Francisco Rodriguez is the outreach director of the 10th Amendment Center in Florida, and that group strives to keep the federal government from enacting legislation beyond powers enumerated in the Constitution. Rodriguez is also active in the James Madison Institute and was elected to the board of the directors of the Florida Flood Policy Council. Rodriguez is our guest today. He's here to talk to us about the Second Amendment Preservation Act. We'll discuss the history of the bill as well as the potential to pass into law. All right, Francisco, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's jump right into it. What is the Second Amendment Preservation Act hope to accomplish in the state of Florida?
The basics of the Second Amendment Preservation Act are really to stop Florida agents, including local law enforcement, from collaborating with the federal government every time the federal government violates the Second Amendment.
Can you give me an example of some of the times where the Second Amendment has been violated in Florida and how other agencies have helped to make sure that happens? Federal agencies or local agencies help to make that happen.
So the federal agencies require about 7 out of 10 times local agents and local resources. It's hard to put somebody in a prison that you don't have. If you're a federal agent, you'll have to keep them in a hotel room, or perhaps you need to handcuff them and you don't have the manpower to have all the equipment that you need. So you'll see different news reports where somebody's being tracked and about to be caught for violating a federal gun law, and that gun law violates the Second Amendment. And you'll see county sheriff, local police, all the different levels of our state government working in collaboration with ATF. And so this bill would make it impossible for a state of Florida agent to work with them. So the federal government can still enforce the law themselves if they wanted to, but they wouldn't have enough manpower to do it more than 3 out of 10 times. And as other states begin to adopt this type of legislation, it makes the federal government powerless because they need the states. And that's
Francisco, why is it that local authorities are actually currently enforcing laws that do violate the Second Amendment, violate the Constitution?
Well, I think that local law enforcement needs to be looked at as collaborating with the federal government, just like state agencies do. You see it in Medicare expansion with Obamacare. You see it with school districts and implementing Common Core. So this isn't the first time it's happened, and the reality is that the federal government depends on states to enforce its laws in order for them to be carried out. The federal government can't do it on its own.
Despite the fact that these laws are going against the Constitution and the right to keep and bear arms.
Yeah, with this particular law, it's despite that they're still enforcing it, but you can have that with any federal law that violates the Constitution. But local agents are required to carry it out. And so what we're doing is we're taking one law, a very important law to us in liberty, and that's the right to defend ourselves by keeping and bearing arms. And we're implementing a doctrine called the anti-commandeering doctrine, which is a legal doctrine that is well established, that we don't have to carry out as states federal laws that violate the Constitution or federal laws that we just don't like. So we have a two-tiered approach in carrying this out. First, we limit the action of the state and the local agents with the federal government, and then second, the federal government can't enforce its laws effectively because it doesn't have access to our resources.
And what are the chances that this bill could actually pass into law and be signed by the governor?
Well, it took about 2 days, and we got 6 co-sponsors. We need a Senate sponsor, and we need all the help we can get to encourage that. The chances, it's hard to say right now. I'll tell you this, that there's a lot of chatter in the state of Florida about this bill. There's a lot of excitement around the bill. But I don't want to put a percentage on the chances because our focus is on the effort, and we need the people of Florida to respond.
Francisco, now you mentioned the grassroots support that you're getting. What about the overall general public? How are they responding to the talk of this bill?
We haven't gotten a lot of general public activity. There's one small paper that covered it just briefly. And so we haven't gotten a lot of public exposure. Our focus is really creating momentum via the grassroots, and letting the exposure be through them, rather than a lot of public exposure, because we don't have a lot of media outreach. But I think that in the very near future, 10th Amendment Center, especially with the work of Michael Bolton and Mike Meharry, we're going to be working on getting more national exposure on the work that we're doing in Florida. But for now, we're just focused on getting all the Liberty people in the state of Florida to engage.
Now, I believe it was the state of Missouri that has also introduced this legislation. Are you coordinating your strategies and techniques with the grassroots people in Missouri?
No, we work very separately. The 10th Amendment Center is very decentralized. What we do have is we have consistent efforts that are at least content development is done that way. But as far as outreach, we focus very much on our own states as much as possible.
Now, in order for the bill to pass, what are the actual next steps that will need to occur?
The very first one is that we need a Senate sponsor. The House sponsor, Dan Eagle, he has been working with us back and forth. We had some verbal interest from a few senators. No one has sponsored the bill, and without a Senate sponsor, in the next few weeks, this bill will go nowhere in 2014. So that is our very first focus. And then after that, we have, I think about 5 or 6 committees. We haven't defined that just yet, that we'll need to go through. And then finally the House vote, Senate vote, governor's desk. So it's a long path to success, but we are ready to engage the grassroots every step of the way, and we need everybody to participate.
So the initial first step is to get a co-sponsor for the bill. So for the people who are watching this program right now in Florida, what would you ask them to do if they wanted to see this bill move along the legislative path?
We have a website that has encouragement of co-sponsors and allows people to reach out to their senators. It's fltac.org/2A-action. So if you just go to fltac.org and then just look up the Second Amendment, you will see the exact action steps. We work with the Liberty Action Center that allows you to very targetedly focus on your representatives in the State House. We've put that data in for the people that are activists, and we also have a way to call them. So we have a phone number there so you can log the call. We are very focused on the tactical steps and using a very simple system. It takes less than 30 seconds to just put in your address to get the email out, less than a minute to make a phone call and let your voice be heard on the bill and encourage a co-sponsorship or a sponsorship. So we are very tactically focused. on the overall strategy of limiting the actions of states and local officers from collaborating with the federal government as they violate the Second Amendment.
We covered a lot of the steps required to get this bill into law, the grassroots support, the public support, but who are some of the voices and the organizations who are opposing, who are putting roadblocks in your path to prevent the passage of this act?
There's no one yet that has stepped up to directly oppose it. And so for that, we're thankful. You're going to find it very uncomfortable for people to actually oppose this bill because it's well understood in a number of cases from the Supreme Court that states do not have to collaborate with the federal government. But what we're seeing is people that are choosing neither to support nor to oppose it. And so those people are maybe causing some of the inertia in the Senate. And so we want to be careful to encourage adamant support by our grassroots. But no one has come out against it yet. We think that we'll see some opposition from some groups, but we're working on some responses that we can give to the questions that they'll have. And I think once those questions are answered, the only opposition is going to be from the anti-gun crowd, but they haven't come out against it yet.
And how would you present that argument then to the anti-gun crowd and presenting that this is a positive need for the state of Florida?
I think the best way to do it is to say, we're not stopping the federal government from enforcing their own laws. They can do that. What we want to do is protect the resources of Florida to make sure that we're not enforcing laws that are not compliant with the Constitution, which is the law of the land. So I think the way that we message that is going to be about protecting Florida's resources. So we make sure that we are spending this money for Florida and not spending it for DC.
Now, are there other, I don't want to get too far on a tangent, but staying in the same vein of protecting Florida's resources, and revenue and making sure that it's applied properly in the state, are there other examples where the federal government has come in, and applied laws that were unconstitutional and that drain the resources of Florida?
All the time. Our budget is broken down into three basic categories. It's education, healthcare, and then everything else. So if you looked at our healthcare budget, how much we
Technical difficulties. Give me a second here.
categories. It's education, healthcare, and then everything else. So if you looked at our healthcare budget, how much we
And it looks like I'm starting to lose my connection here. Kind of odd. Not sure what is going on here. Give me a few seconds. I think everything's starting to lock up. Can't really do anything. Can't read your article, can't do anything. My computer is completely locked up. I can't move my mouse. I can't do anything. Not sure what's going on here. Do. I have no clue. Come on. Here we go again. Finally, got my mouse to move. And that's what I'm getting. Failure. Success.
Healthcare budget, how much we have to spend on Medicaid, and how much we have to spend on education, and really the educational. In order to get federal money, we have to spend a significant amount to comply with certain federal laws. So, in our major spending categories for the state of Florida, there are literally numerous examples, but they focus in these two major spending categories of healthcare and education. So the recent implementation of Obamacare, if states resist implementation of or expansion of the of Medicare, then that will protect Florida's resources, and that'll all have to come from D.C. They'll have to spend their own money. They'll have to have their own people. They have to have their own systems, rather than utilizing the infrastructure that we have in our state and really protecting our state from having to absorb all that cost, because the money may be there from the federal government the first year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, but after a while, Florida will carry the brunt of that liability. And for the Second Amendment Preservation Act, that's happening already. We are carrying a significant percentage. If we were to break it down just by reports we carry about 70% of the weight. We don't know if that's dollars, but we know 7 out of 10 times the federal government uses state and local law enforcement to enforce violations of the Second Amendment.
So you're saying that already now the most significant change perhaps in Florida, if this bill were to be signed into law, is the fiscal resources that are exerted to enforce federal law?
I think that's one of that's the one that we would use to communicate to those that might be nervous about this bill or concerned about it. But obviously the most important one is the fact that citizens of Florida are not going to be constantly barraged by new laws that the federal government has on guns. And so the two objectives are, number one, save some Florida money, but number two, keep the citizens of Florida from having to be afraid of federal laws that violate the Second Amendment.
Now, what could be some of the long-term effects of such a law prohibiting the enforcement of federal laws in any given state?
Well, I think the long-term effects are just a lot more liberty. The two main aspects of government are the purse and the sword, and the sword, without a defense of the people, becomes very concerning to our purse. as people. So I think it extends liberty. I think it would give the federal government caution about trying to enforce or do different types of militaristic types of activities using force. And so we would be able to defend ourselves, but certainly just the ability to keep and bear arms would allow us to protect our communities and our families. So that's what we're encouraged with. That's what we're focused on. That's what this bill would allow, and it would stop the state of Florida from violating the Second Amendment, collaborating with the federal government.
So what would happen then if there were agents in the state agencies that did go ahead and assist with the fulfillment of federal gun laws if this act was in place? What would happen to those people or those agencies?
Real simple. The individuals would lose their jobs. That's written into the text, and so if a violation, if the bill is passed, when it goes into law, an agency or an agent of the state of Florida or any of the subsidiaries of the state of Florida attempt to work with the federal government enforcing federal gun laws, excuse me, they will no longer have their position.
All right. Francisco, thanks for joining us. One last question. If the people, again, want to support
Okay, that was Florida 10th Amendment Center nullifying federal laws with Second Amendment Preservation Acts. What do you think of nullification? Do you think it really is a good tool against the system that we're in? Okay, I have to bring something back up here for a second, so give me just a second. And I caught this one out of In the Lie, dealing with Sochi and visitors going over there. Let me see if it's going to pop up for me. And this one's report: Sochi visitors immediately hacked when connecting to wireless networks. Visitors to the Sochi Olympics are being immediately hacked when connecting to wireless networks, resulting in a warning from the U.S. Senate Department, according to reports. Reports from ABC News and NBC News stated that Russian hackers are breaching the phones and personal computers of thousands of foreign tourists visiting the country for the Winter Olympics in Sochi. The State Department has informed American visitors that they should have no expectation of privacy during their stay in Russia, according to Engadget. The hacking is apparently quite sophisticated, with NBC's Richard Engel and a security expert showing that test computers were hacked before they even finished their coffee. The test, which was conducted in a cafe, resulted in hackers placing malware on the computers, stealing data, and giving hackers the option to tap or even record my phone calls. Engel reported that it took less than 1 minute for hackers to pounce, and in less than 24 hours, they had broken into both of my computers. The report did not state if they were on the cafe's public Wi-Fi or if they were on a cellular network. A security contractor for the Sochi Olympics told ABC News last week that the situation is similar to the Beijing Olympics. The host government private enterprise and individual policy a big threat to people traveling to the Sochi Games. Yeah, I'd probably definitely stay clear of connecting to definitely Wi-Fi networks in a foreign country. Think you might be a little bit safer through the cellular networks, but you're never 100% safe. Play this little clip here.
Day. The opening ceremony is this coming Friday night. The games actually begin on Thursday, 2 days from now, with 3 early events in prime time. As tourists and families of athletes arrive in Sochi, if they haven't been warned, and if they fire up their phones at baggage claim, it's probably too late to save the integrity of their electronics and everything inside them. Visitors to Russia can expect to be hacked. And as Richard Engel found out upon his arrival there, it's not a matter of if, but when. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. It is not just hacking. The State Department warned that travelers should have no expectation of privacy, even in their hotel rooms. And as we found out, you are especially exposed as soon as you try and communicate with anything.
One of the first things visitors to Russia will do is log on. Hackers here are counting on it. So we decided to find out how dangerous that can be.
Kyle, hey. Welcome to Moscow.
Yeah, thank you. With the help of Kyle Wilhoit, a top American computer security expert, and 2 brand new computers.
For the purpose of this experiment, we start out with these fresh machines and going to see what happens when you turn them on in Russia. Exactly.
Back in the U.S., Wilhoit had created a fake identity for me. Phony contact lists with fake names and addresses. The only real detail, my name.
So you're putting my profile on these computers. That's exactly right.
With our new computers, now loaded with potentially attractive data, we headed for a restaurant where we used a new smartphone to browse for information about the Sochi Olympics. Almost immediately, we were hacked.
So as you're going to it, did you see where it said downloading?
Yeah, I did.
Right. It's actually downloading a piece of malware.
Malicious software hijacked our phone before we even finished our coffee, stealing my information and giving hackers the option to tap and record my phone calls.
Anything I say on this will endanger my financial security, maybe even my physical security.
Even physical.
Depending on who's listening.
Exactly.
Kaspersky Labs, one of the largest computer security companies in the world, is charged with protecting the games. But experts here say visitors will bring so many devices, the hackers will have plenty of targets.
All this needs protection, of course, because every segment of this huge infrastructure can be under attack.
Back at the hotel, Wilhoit was using special software to monitor my 2 computers. And sure enough, they'd also been hacked.
You were able to tell that very, very quickly somebody was poking around.
Exactly.
It had taken hackers less than 1 minute to pounce. Within 24 hours, they'd broken into both computers and started helping themselves to my data.
So where is this information going?
That computer in particular, the traffic is actually going to a server within Russia.
American athletes and fans now coming to Russia by the thousands are entering a minefield the instant they log on to the internet.
The best way to protect yourself, Brian, is actually quite simple. If you don't really need a device, don't bring it. Try and avoid the public Wi-Fi. And if there's anything particularly and uniquely important on your computer or phone, banking information, photographs, remove it before coming to Russia.
Americans, other visitors, as they say, have been warned. Richard Engel in Sochi, we'll see you over there.
I think if they're hacking the cellular networks, then it would be more government related. If they're Wi-Fiing their phones at the cafe, maybe then they should be saying in the report, hey, don't connect to the Wi-Fi, stay on your cellular 3G or whatever, and you'll, be safer. I don't know how hard it would be to hack a cellular network. I'm not a hacker, so I would have no idea. But I don't know. Some of how they left it pretty broad kind of seems fishy to me. I would definitely call that pretty fishy. We do have open phones, 718-717-8296. Feel free to call in, 718-717-8296. Talk about anything I've went over this evening, or if you want to bring something up, feel free. And another one that we've seen way too much of this, and we're seeing more of it. This one come from Ben Swan. This one's a new one that was posted 18 minutes ago. U.S. Postal Service preparing for mass gun and ammunition buy. On January 31st, 2014, the United States Postal Service posted a solicitation to purchase assorted small arms ammunition. On the federal government's Federal Business Opportunities website, fbo.gov, the solicitation is structured to begin a bidding process for the purchase of guns and ammunition. The USPS has been posting 1 to 5 billion quarterly losses for years. In fiscal year 2012 alone, the USPS lost a record $15.9 billion. At its current rate of spending, the USPS is projected to hit $45 billion in debt within the next 3 years. Regardless of this debt and the national debt, at $17.3 trillion, the U.S. government has been purchasing firearms and ammunition off of the market at an alarming rate. Multiple federal agencies have recently bought billions of dollars worth of firearms and ammunition. These agencies include the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Education, the IRS, the Social Security Administration, and more. The intended purpose for these firearms and ammunition is currently unknown. Conspiracies have flooded the internet, and multiple members of Congress have questioned the purchase without receiving straight answers. Congressman Huelskamp, Republican from Kansas, has questioned DHS officials multiple times concerning the ammunition purchases and has yet received a serious answer.
I wanted to commend you for being one of the few representatives who actually voted against the NDAA twice. Was that because of the indefinite detention provision?
Yeah, I think something of so constitutionally suspect. But it's one of those things, if you're not absolutely crystal clear on a constitutional issue like that, we shouldn't take those chances. Now, I gather folks on the other side that think they covered that. I just didn't think we did a good enough job. And based on how hard it was for Senator Paul to get an answer out of this administration very clearly, we need to make that absolutely crystal clear that there's constitutional protections in this country.
Do you think there should be legislative work to stop the deposition matrix, Obama's kill list? Do you think that's any way possible?
Well, one of the difficulties I have as a member of Congress is the failure of this administration to actually provide information on what's going on. You know, when we take office, we sign an oath to office. We also sign a little card that says we have access to classified military intelligence. And I'll just tell you, this administration and prior administrations are not very clear and open and transparent with the folks that actually control their budget. Every member of Congress should know the answers to those questions, whether or not they can share them.
My last question is, the Department of Homeland Security recently bought 1.6 billion bullets, 7,000 rifles, and riot gear. Why does Homeland Security need these weapons of war against the people?
They have no answer for that question. They refuse to answer that. I've got a list of questions of various agencies about multiple things. Far from being the most transparent administration in the world, they are the most closed nature, opaque, and they refuse to let us know what's going on there. So I don't have an answer for that. Multiple members of Congress are asking those questions. But it comes down to it. During the budget process, during the appropriations process, are we willing to hold DHS's feet to the fire? We're going to find out. If we get an answer, right, I say we don't fund them until we get an answer.
Yeah, they're complaining about the sequester, but buying $50 million new uniforms, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, there's plenty of waste going on, plenty of areas that can make those cuts, and obviously those type of things really challenge Americans. They're worried about this administration.
One of the few people
one person sends our
to actually question. That was Congressman Huell's Camp, from Republican from Kansas. It is likely the Obama administration is attempting to put a squeeze on the supply of firearms and ammunition in the market in an attempt to manipulate prices. Some believe the administration actions are of more insidious intentions. Basically meaning that they're ready for civil unrest. I think it could be both. I think that they're definitely looking to try to keep ammunition and firearms higher in price and try to keep ammunition off shelves. We've seen ammunition finally flown back onto shelves. I can actually get ammo to go target practicing now, and that's something I love to do. Now there's way too much snow to go outside where I go, where I can shoot my big guns. You can go indoor range and shoot some of my smaller guns, but I like playing with my big ones. I like taking those out. And, the only ranges that are indoor that allow me to shoot it, I'd have to buy a annual package that basically will pay for a new backstop for them. So, a little pricey to shoot my big ones, unless I go outside, and, there's probably well over a foot. My grandparents live near me. I had to actually basically dig a trail to their place to drop off some mail because, well, you couldn't get out to the road without walking through knee-high snow right now, so pretty bad. We have a call coming in. Let's go ahead and take this. Hello, caller. What's your name and what would you like to speak about? Hello? Caller. And they hung up. Okay, guess not. If you do want to call in, 718-717-8296, so feel free to call in. If that person just couldn't hear me, go ahead and try to call back. If not, oh well. The problem I have with, a lot of what's going on right now is when you have groups like the Postal Service buying firearms and ammunition, when you have the Department of Education buying firearms and ammunition. This is beyond just needing to be questioned, why are you buying this much ammo? The question needs to be, why is Department of Education, why is the United States Postal Service buying firearms and ammunition that's unacceptable at any level? Well, it's to no, that's unacceptable. They're not law enforcement. They are not military. No. No. But no. But no. Unacceptable. It's just ridiculous to say that, well, the United States Postal Service might need, guns and ammo for, the terrorists. No. I thought that's what we have Homeland Security for? Oh, hold on. No, we had Department of Defense too, and then, well, hold on, Department of Defense, then why do we have Homeland Security? Well, if Department of Defense is supposed to defend the country, Homeland Security must be a civilian paramilitary force, that's helping to militarize the police, Department of Education, USPS, what, we've reached the point that when you look at all this, if you're willing to ignore it, you are part of the problem. That right there is the problem with society right now. When society will just dismiss it, look over it. But the Super Bowl's on. I gotta go watch the Super Bowl. I don't care that USPS is buying firearms and ammunition. They should have ARs when they deliver my mail. And then they might want to search my house too. But they're not law enforcement, so they'll use some type of code to say they can enter your property, which we've seen code enforcers basically go, I don't need a warrant, I'm not law enforcement. You're government official, yes, you need a warrant. And you'll see where the sheriff basically won't even come on the property, but won't stop the code inspector or whatever from coming on properties. And you can find the videos on YouTube. One of them happened here somewhere in Indiana. And it's just crazy. When you look at everything going on, what are they fighting? They're fighting the citizenry. America's waging war on itself. And they've been able to accomplish this through divide and conquer. They've divided the Americans up. The one thing that can unite people is liberty, freedom, the truth. To say that you can live your life the way you choose as long as you harm nobody else. Hopefully we see more people wake up, and I think we have been. I had someone ask me if I had to choose between Rand Paul and Ted Cruz, who would I choose? And I had to tell them it would have to be Rand Paul over Ted Cruz. Because, not that I agree with Rand Paul. Not that I truly know exactly where he stands on it. But I know that he knows that the system, how it's set up right now, is just a perpetual war that harms minorities and the low-income people. And that's war on drugs. And Ted Cruz doesn't believe in state nullification when it comes to that. He thinks that states that nullify it, legalize it, well, they're bypassing federal law. Well, no, if Ted Cruz, if you're really a constitutionalist, then you would understand nullification. And, that's where I definitely don't stand with Ted. That's why, I think Ted Cruz is more of a, controlled opposition compared to Rand. I think Rand's trying to control the opposition. Two different things. But who knows? I don't know. That's something that we would have to see if that ever unfolded. Okay. I have one last one I want to get from Ben Swan, and this is for anybody in the position of trying to get Nancy Pelosi out of her seat, out of office. And this was breaking 9 hours ago. BenSwan.com. Liberty candidate John Dennis challenges Nancy Pelosi. John Dennis announced in a press release today that he is challenging U.S. Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. Dennis is taking on big issues like NSA spying, civil liberties, national debt, and the economy. Dennis is anti-war, pro-civil liberties candidate who wants to bring common sense back to Washington. Dennis told Joshua Cook, "These races are important, especially the high-profile ones. We get to call out the most hypocritical politicians like Pelosi. I think it's important to take the opportunity to do that. It soothes my soul to be out there in the fight, fighting for things that I believe in." Cook asked, "Can we expect any of those great commercials to be coming out soon? We always have things up our sleeves," Dennis said. Dennis is known for his creative political ads seen in the video below. Oh, excuse me there. Let's see what this, if the audio on this ad is decent.
I can vote for with a brain.
Let's start over.
I wish there was a political party I could vote for with a brain. Or courage. Or a heart.
I don't care about political parties. I just want a home that isn't blown away by debt. Oh, Toto.
I'll put you in debt for generations.
Oh, that's not it at all, Toto. Not at all.
Hello, my pretty. I will save you from those evil Republicans. But first, pay $18,000 a month for my downtown office, and then go into massive debt for Wall Street bailouts. And here are my monkeys to make you pay for it all.
Step back, everyone.
Oh, I fell deep.
Thank you for saving us. Who are you?
I'm John Dennis. I'm running for Congress. I believe in following the Constitution, and I believe in reducing debt, and I believe it's time to throw a little water on politicians who say one thing and do another, like Nancy Pelosi.
We're home, Toto. We're home.
I have to say, for a political commercial, that's a pretty good one. I dropped it in the chat for anybody that wants to actually watch it. You can probably find it on YouTube. It's titled Nancy Pelosi as Wicked Witch John Dennis campaign ad. It's pretty good. That was for 2010. Go ahead and, check out his information. If you're in the position, Nancy Pelosi is definitely someone we definitely need out of Congress. No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. I think her and, Boehner, both of them. It doesn't matter who you have, Boehner or Pelosi. They're just parasites on Congress. They're progressives. They're big government. That's why it doesn't matter, left or right. And, that's what I try to seek. Anti-Tyranny News, people that I work with, we try to seek liberty, truth, and freedom. We don't go left or right. We point out the hypocrisy on both left and right. The hypocrisy when capitalists are called capitalist, when they're really corporatist. When we have free market people that aren't really free market people. When we have libertarians that aren't really libertarians. Just look at George W. Bush. Look at what language he used when he ran for president. Oh, he was quite the constitutionalist. A lot of rhetoric, but no action. Complete opposite. There's very few people in the Republican Party willing to stand up, and very few people in the Democratic Party that are willing to stand up. And just like Ron Paul, they're always silenced. And, you know, if we want to try to reverse and keep a complete collapse from happening, we can't continue to elect these people to rule over us. If there's going to be someone that anybody should ever vote for, it should be the person that says, let's not rule over you and let's stop government from growing and completely reverse it and take that action. And that's why many people like Ron Paul, he always voted the way he said he would. And most of these politicians do the complete opposite. Oh, we don't want the NDAA with indefinite detention. Time to vote. Yep, I vote for it. Oh, we got to pass it. No, you don't. Well, yeah, we have to authorize this action. No, you don't. And then the media turns around and says the exact same thing. Well, the American people want Congress to act and get back to work and pass more laws. No, we don't. We're tired of them. Passed enough laws. We don't need any more. What do they not get about that? I don't see what the big problem is. I think it's pretty easy to understand. Okay, give me 1 second here. Remember, I had a crash here, so bear with me. And, I was actually listening to some, just kind of like a little off topic here. I was listening to some national talk, radio, some of the more mainstream talk radio, and seems that alternative radio is no longer the ones that are just having things crashing on them. I've heard 4 broadcasts now that were big time, hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in this operation, and all their stuff is crashing live on air. And these are the few broadcasts that they're actually bringing up important issues. And they're not going maybe as deep down the rabbit hole as many other alternative broadcasts are, but they're at least bringing up some of these issues, and they're in the middle of stuff having everything crash on them. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Just a little off topic thing. Okay, here we go. And this one, I kind of was saving this one.
President Obama used the recent...
Luckily, I bookmarked this one. But, Fry Cook owns Obama and Google Hangout session. I thought this was good.
An interactive Google Hangout session to promote his campaign to address income inequality, and he got some feedback he probably didn't expect. One of the citizen participants, a fry cook named Darnell Summers, described to the president how his hours were cut because of Obamacare requirements. Summers told the president that he and other employees were broken down to part-time to avoid paying health insurance. He also mentioned that he makes $7.25 an hour, and he's been on strike 4 times in search of a wage increase. As Summers put it, "We can't survive. It's not living." Obama declined to address Summers' chief complaint, namely that he was a victim of Obamacare mandates. Instead, he spoke at length about his campaign to increase the minimum wage and his frustration with Republicans who oppose him. Summers was not the only participant in the Google Hangout who confronted the president over Obamacare. He also heard from a woman from Kentucky named Rebecca Stewart who lost her insurance coverage despite Obama's repeated promises that Americans would be able to keep their plans if they liked them. The president's suggestion was that Stewart should have someone from the White House call her, despite the fact that she had already contacted numerous government agencies and have been given conflicting and often incorrect information.
I've already been contacting you guys. You guys keep running me around the bush. Why would I contact you more? Just stop this crap. That's what I'd be saying. Be like, no, listen, I've already went through all the routes. If it's taken this much energy to do this when before all I had to do was pay a lesser price and I still couldn't afford that, yeah. And most people, it's not that they didn't even have it, it's that they're losing it. It's pretty evident, I think, for most people that this whole Obamacare was set up to fail. Why was it set up to fail? What would be the main goal of setting Obamacare up to fail? The one-payer system. The one thing they couldn't get from the beginning that they really wanted. Well, if we just set it up where it's going to end up failing anyways, then we can push it. Look, insurance companies are failing. We need to just go to a one-payer system. That's exactly what they're going to do. Then they got you. Then stuff that's in Obamacare like RFID chips and stuff. Oh yeah, that would be a lot easier. And I urge people, go watch the trailer for Gray State. Go watch the trailer for Gray State. Watch the trailer for Gray State and then call into the broadcast this Friday. You'll be a little shaken probably. Because if you watch the trailer for Gray State, you basically see the parallels of what's starting to happen right now in America. And if you think about it, look when Gray State trailer came out. This is a grassroots movie that is being made for, mainstream, but it's being done grassroots, and they've had to sit here and work with almost, no funding other than donations and out of their own pockets. Look when it was made, and now look where we are. It's coming true before the movie's finished. And there's other movies out there that are mainstream. Things like, I think, Children of Men. Children of Men, basically a populace that's become sterile. One lady ends up becoming pregnant. And a populace that can't have children anymore. They've become sterile. And no one can figure out why. Just watch that movie. I don't expect that to be watched by Friday, but definitely watch the Gray State trailer and call in this Friday. Because I think that we are entering the final throes of America before it collapses. Government clamping down on the last of what is left. They want to clamp down on it, that way they still have something to control. They know that America's failing. They know that what they're doing is what other countries have done. They think they can do it better, that way it doesn't collapse. But history has shown that, everybody's tried to do it better. The direction they're going is a progression of the same old thing that's caused us to get to this point. It's like if you start hammering a nail into a piece of wood, and that nail bends just a little bit. Enough where, well, if you take time and straighten that nail back out and then continue to hammer it, it goes right in just like you want it. But the way they're going about it in government now, it's like you bending that nail just a little bit. Well, you just swing on it again and it bends some more. Well, just swing on it again and bend some more. And then, well, now the nail's not holding two pieces of wood together, but it's embedded in that piece of wood. Now you can't even get it out. That's when America collapses. When that nail's bent, embedded into the wood, when there is no reversal, when we don't have any other choice, because those choices have been taken from us. Do we want to wait for America to collapse? I've heard preppers, not here on this network, but I've heard preppers talk about, well, I don't mind if America, I'm just waiting. I've had friends that told me that. Just waiting for it to collapse. We can't reverse it, just waiting for it to collapse. And I think they really underestimate what's really going to go down. What's really going to happen when it collapses. I think a lot of people are naive to what's really going to happen when it collapses. They think, oh, I'll just disappear a little bit, you know. I don't think they understand how difficult it will be. You're not just going to grab your backpack and take off and be fine. It's going to be one of those things that you're going to have to fight every inch of the way. It's not going to allow for many people to make it out alive. Because once it gets to that point, the last thing government has is your slavery. When everything else is lost, when government is at its last breath, the last thing it has is the citizenry. How can they use them? How can they benefit? Okay. Not sure what that was. Okay. You know, while you go about your week, start looking at different things that pop out that seem like maybe something a slave would do. But you see society just voluntarily doing it. Kind of like, TSA checkpoint where people just go through the process, not even questioning what they're doing. People that go about their daily lives just, would you want to stop and frisk me? Sure, it's for my safety. You'll be amazed what you see. You'll truly be amazed. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I'll see you this Friday, and I will be picking up Mondays. I'll have an hour every Monday, 6 to 7. Take care. Have a great week. See you Friday.